Hey guys, it's Tahira, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of March. So I'm actually filming this a bit earlier. I'm doing it on March 28th because I'm leaving to go out of town to go visit my family back in California. And I hate filming around when there's a house full of other people, so I just decided to do it a few days early because the month is almost over. There's only a few days left, and I've read most of the books that I already will for this month. So let's just start talking about them. So in terms of statistics, first of all, the genre breakdown, I read 2 fiction, 1 historical fiction, 2 romance, 1 dystopian, and 1 fantasy romance, and the total pages for all of this was 2,561. I read 7 books this month, which I'm counting the book that I'm currently in because I'm very sure that I'm gonna finish it before the month ends, so I'm just gonna include it. But including that, I'm gonna read 7 books this month, which I feel is pretty good, and it's on the higher end for me. I don't know, I always see people with wrap-ups where they're going 10, 11, 12, 13 plus, and I'm I feel I can never do that, and I aspire to be like that. But I feel for me, a 7 is a pretty good number. Actually, surprisingly, this month I actually broke my year-long 5-star drought. So I finally gave a book 5 stars after a whole ass year, and I'm so excited to talk about it. Anyways, the first book that I read in the month of March was Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. I read this for a TBR jar picking my reads video because I wanted to get some books off of my TBR card right here because it's getting pretty full, and honestly I added more books after I read the 3, so some of them are overflowing and I need to take care of that pretty soon. But I read this book for that video and I had really high hopes for this one. I thought the concept is super interesting, and I first saw it on Books and Lala's channel and she was reading it and she rated it really highly, so I decided to pick it up after that. This one follows this woman named Una, and on her 19th birthday she ends up waking up in her 51-year-old body, and from then on she realizes that she's aging out of order. So even though mentally she's aging chronologically, every year she's gonna be in a different year body. So she'll be 19 and then she'll be in a 51-year-old's body, and then she'll be 20, but then she'll be 42-year-old body. So it was a really interesting concept, and that's what drew me to this book in the first place. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, so definitely a solid book, but it kind of got a little bit repetitive after a while for me because it's broken up into sections. We're basically following a few years after she turns 19, a few years of her life where she's jumping around in time, but the structure of those chapters and sections became really repetitive because it would basically be she's waking up in a new body, and then she goes through some big event. She sort of has to adjust to this new life, new body, new stuff that's happening in her life at that time. But then it would kind of go through a major event for that year, and then it would just skim over a lot of the year, oh, she did this, and then she did this, and then it would just end with her birthday again, and then we would kind of follow her again for the next year of her life, I guess. So that one, I feel it kind of got repetitive after a while, like I said, and I just wish there was a little bit more variation, I guess, to the structure. I was also really confused about how this time jumping year thing was actually happening and what it really meant, because her life is out of order, but she has knowledge from previous years, but I don't know, just the way the knowledge works, and I don't know, it just really was confusing to me in the beginning. But yeah, if you want more of my thoughts, I will definitely link that reading vlog down below because it has more thoughts and my real-time reactions too. But 3.5 stars, so not a terrible read. I just wanted a little bit more from this book overall and from the ending. The next book I also read for that TBR video, and that is The Women by Kristen Hanna. This one I was super excited for because obviously Kristen Hanna is a really well-known and beloved author. She's really good at writing really emotionally charged stories about people. So I was really excited for this book because I have read The Nightingale by her and I really loved that, but it has been a while since I'd read a Kristen Hanna, and this is my first one after many years. I ended up giving this 3.75, which is definitely a lot lower than I was anticipating. I thought this would I was hoping it to be at least a 4, if not higher, but it just was a different structured story than I thought it was going to be before going into it. So this one is about this girl named Frankie, and she's very naive and innocent, and she doesn't really know much about hardship, and she lives in a world during the Vietnam War where the men were the one going to war and the women didn't really have any agency in their life, and they kind of were obviously like more in a nurturing role of being like a good wife and a good mother. But then this random person comes to her and tells her that women can be heroes, and she uses that as inspiration to sign up as a nurse for the army in the Vietnam War. And so it's kind of following her story as she goes to the war and what her experience was like with that. I think this is a good story about something that really isn't talked about that much in history. Like in high school and history classes, we would always touch on the Vietnam War, but I've never really had or heard anything about like the women that were part of it, and especially like the nurses, because obviously they're a really integral part of the army and they keep like everyone alive, but obviously not something that's really talked about. The Vietnam War is also a very controversial war, not just in history, but even in this book. Like a lot of people during that time were protesting against it and just not in favor of it. So the people that were in the war, like the veterans and even the nurses, they weren't treated very well when they came back. And also this book is like, when I said different structure, just because I thought this book would be more focused on Frankie going to war and like her time in the actual war part of it, but it was actually focused a lot more on what her experience was like when she came back home. I would say less than 50% is actually her at the war, and then the majority is obviously like the backlash that she receives, like the unexpected nature of her return, because she obviously thinks that everyone's going to be so happy for her and excited for her to come back, but when she comes back, everyone's kind of hush-hush about it, and people don't really even know about the women, because whenever she would bring up that she was at the war, everyone would be like, there's no women in Vietnam, because they didn't really see nurses as like actually to the same level as someone who's in combat. So she was kind of getting erased in history, like even during her time. It's all about her experience like after the war and like how she deals with it. I feel like overall this story would have been better maybe if there were multiple perspectives. She has some other friends that are in the army as well, like as nurses, like her nurse friends, and I think it would have added a lot to the story if we got different perspectives, because it is called The Women, but we're only following one like girl's story, and I think it would have added like so much to the story and to like history, or to the history, to add like more perspectives of the women that were there. Friends also didn't really serve a purpose other than kind of continuing and furthering her story, and I just wish we kind of fleshed out their characters and backstories a little bit more. But overall, I did enjoy it. I had a good time, and I was definitely like engaged when reading it. It was just a really different story than I think what I was expecting. And then the last book I read for that TBR video is the story Life of AJ Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. This one I ended up giving 3 stars, which is also a lot lower than I thought. I've heard so many great things about this book, but honestly I just didn't connect with it as much as I thought I would. It's pretty short, so maybe that's why, and it covers like a lot of time, like many years of the main character's life, and I thought it would be more like a smaller scale story than it was. So I just don't know why this didn't work for me. It just didn't. I don't know, this one's kind of hard to talk about. I feel like 3 stars can be weird because it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. It was a very middle of the road. Like I liked it, enjoyed it, I guess, but it wasn't like mind-blowing or life-changing or anything, and I don't really have that many thoughts about it. So I'm probably just gonna leave it here. But yeah, 3 stars. It was okay, very middle of the road, very meh. I'm still excited for Tomorrow because I've heard great things about that one, but this one was just a little bit of a miss for me, I guess. Then I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I had heard so much about this book, like specifically last year. I feel like I saw so many people read it online, like on booktube, and really enjoy it, so I was really excited about this one. I ended up giving this one 4.25 stars, so really solid romance. And honestly, like I still think about this book, so maybe I might even bump the rating higher. I just thought it was a really well done story. It follows a trope that I haven't really read much of and didn't really know how much I would like, but it follows like the accidental pregnancy trope. So this girl, I'm totally forgetting her name because I'm so bad at names in books, like I forget them immediately, but it follows this girl and she has a one-night stand with this random guy at a Halloween party, and then she finds out that she's pregnant, and it kind of follows her story because she decides to keep the baby, and it kind of follows her pregnancy, and that's kind of how the book is split up too. Like every other chapter is like following different points of her pregnancy up until like the very end, which when she gives birth. I feel like this was really, really realistic, which I really loved, because after she found out she was pregnant, it took her a little bit to get the male love interest into her life again, like in the picture, because obviously she was debating on how to tell him. But once he was in her life, I feel like it would have been very easy for it to like connect again, because they had a really good connection with their one night stand. I feel like it would have been really easy for them to like fall into that lust again, but she was very like healthily skeptical of him, which I don't know why I liked that, because I like that she didn't just accept him and like become comfortable with him immediately. I like that there was a little bit of time when she was taking the time to get to know him more, wasn't really sure about his intentions or who he was, like, because truly sometimes characters in romance books, like, they meet and then they immediately become latched onto each other, and I'm like, truly you do not know each other. And I just really like that this took the time for them to like kind of be skeptical of each other a little bit before they kind of jumped into the relationship side of things. Like, that lust was always pretty much there, but I like that they were like had some self-restraint. I feel like I haven't seen that a ton in romance books. Like, usually from the get-go they're like obsessed with each other, but I feel like this was a lot more realistic in that sense. And then I also loved that there was no third act conflict. I feel like third act conflicts are always happening in books. Like, usually like there's a miscommunication or misunderstanding, or like there's something keeping the characters apart for a little bit before they come back together. But this one honestly didn't have that, which I feel like is so much more realistic. It was just kind of a progression of how their relationship grew, and for some reason like I really, really liked that. And I feel like that's one of the highlights for the book for me, honestly, because I hate third act conflicts, especially when it's just thrown in there just to like have one for the sake of having one. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this book. Honestly, like, I can't stop thinking about it. Like, I love their story, I love the characters, and yeah, just overall a really, really strong and solid romance. Then we come to my 5-star of the month and of the year, honestly, because it's been too long, but that is of course Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the newest Hunger Games book that just came out literally like a week or two ago at this point, and I actually have a whole like spoiler filled reading vlog just for this book that came out like a week ago, and I'll link that down below. But that definitely has a lot more of my like thoughts and reactions. But of course I loved this book. I was hesitant because it's been a while since the last one, and obviously when a beloved series like this keeps getting more books, you're kind of hesitant going into it because you don't know how good it's gonna be. But obviously this was heartbreaking and devastating and tragic, because this follows Haymitch and his like story in his games. And obviously from Catching Fire we know that his story is like really, really sad and he had to go through a lot, so we kind of got to see that and more, and it really showed just how devastating and heartbreaking his story was and his like past. And it just adds so much more nuance to the character that we see in the original trilogy. And yeah, overall I just had such a good time. I really liked seeing a lot of characters from like the original series pop up, because we get to see that they have so much more history than we get to see in the Hunger Games, and I feel like it adds so much. And for sure, like when I go back and ever reread the original trilogy, I'm gonna see everything with new eyes, because I know that everyone has so much history and like all the like all of Haymitch's past. So I think it'll be really interesting to see like the little things that were dropped in the Hunger Games. I'm kind of rambling about this, but loved this book. I can't wait for the movie. The movie's coming out in 2026, I believe. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how they bring this book to life. But yeah, 5-star, one of my favorite books of the year, and I will always be thinking about Haymitch and his story, because it's truly like so sad and devastating, and I'm just so glad that it was as good as I was hoping it to be. Then I read Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is a dark romance that obviously is really, really popular. I'd heard so much about it, and it's more of like a dark, like in dark romance in a lighthearted way, not really dark in the sense of like the romance part, but dark around it, because it follows two characters and they're both serial killers that kill other serial killers. So it kind of follows their story. And obviously since they're serial killers, it talks a lot about like murder and killing especially in gruesome ways. So I will definitely put trigger warnings for if you're like grossed out by like gore or blood or just definitely squeamish about those things, I would not go to like near this book. This one I ended up giving 2.75 stars because it started off so strong, because in the beginning I was like, oh, I'm eating this up. I loved their banter, the way the story was going in the beginning, but after a while it kind of got repetitive because it follows these two characters. They meet each other like fairly quickly in the beginning of the book, and then they decide to do this like serial killer competition thing where they both have someone else like choose a person and they both have to see who can kill that person first. So they would only meet like once a year, so we were kind of only seeing their interactions for the time that they were together because of that competition, and then they would text each other and visit each other more as like the years went on between the competitions. But I don't know, I just didn't really love that aspect of it. And I wasn't expecting it, honestly. This book is only 350 pages. Actually, it's less. I think it's around 330 or 20 pages, and I still felt like it was dragging towards the end because I just wanted it to finish, and I feel like that's never a good sign with a book, with like even like a book especially that's that short. So yeah, definitely just didn't really hit with me. High hopes from the beginning because I was really enjoying it, but then they kind of just fell apart as I kept reading it. I don't know, after a while the killing and the goriness kind of got a little bit old and repetitive after a while, and it just wasn't really feeling it. So yeah, definitely wanted this to be higher than it was, but I'm not going to be continuing on with the series most likely. And then the last book, which is my current book, but that is Amid Clouds and Bones by Ella Fields. This I'm reading because this is part of the Fanro Forest book club that Ravenhair Reader hosts, and I'd heard a lot about this from like other people. I'd seen a couple other people read it. I was excited about it, but then like people in the book club didn't like it, so I'm kind of reading it for like fun now, I guess. It's like I'm not loving it right now. It's feeling like a 2.5 right now. I'm only 60 pages in, but it's already pretty cringe in the way that the characters are interacting. It seems like definitely like an enemies to lovers, but I don't know, it's just cringe. Like the main male character, he's known as like, his name is Attican, and he's known as Attican the Heartless because he's like really cruel and just not a good person, I guess. But he's basically telling us that he is the most dangerous person ever, basically, and he's like telling the main character like, oh, I'm the person you should be afraid of. But he's also like really young. He's like 15 when he says stuff like that. It's really cringy because he's like 15 and he's saying things like this, and I'm like, truly, you are a child, like literally a child. Like if my brother is 15, and so if he started saying stuff like that, I would literally clown him so bad for life. And I don't know, just him saying stuff like that just makes me cringe. Honestly, I'm almost like hate reading it at this point. I'm not hating it, but like it's more like reading to bash on it than like loving it. Let's see how far I last. I don't know if I would DNF this ever, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling right now. Anyways, that is all for the books I read in the month of March. Let me know down below if you read any of these, as of course I would love to know. But that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.